Hello, everyone. This is Kuxel. I'm joined by Ash Menix.
Hello.
And today it's time for something a little bit different. We're going to reflect on a game we've recently finished. I'm actually not sure when this will go up, to be honest, but whatever. Higanbana no Saku Yoru is a visual novel which I played through quite recently and uploaded a basic reading of, shall we say. And I really enjoyed it. It's by 7th Expansion, the company made by Rikishi 07. Otherwise known for making the popular Higurashi no Nakukoroni, Umineko no Nakukoroni, and Kikonia series, as well as others such as Rose Gun Days, Trianthology, Iwaihime. I think Iwaihime is one as well.
Yes.
Yes, excellent. And it just seems to be growing in prevalence these days. I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again. He is now working on the new Silent Hill F. We'll see if that manages to come out unscathed. We don't exactly have a very high opinion of Konami over here.
No. Also, I feel like it's a big step up. That's a lot more mainstream than most of his other outings.
Yeah, I mean, Higurashi is very big, but that's because it was an anime which was popular when it first came out. The new remake series was also very popular. So, yeah. He is definitely making it big. Not bad for a guy who struck out on his own with a visual novel with, shall we just say, terrible artwork.
It's all right. It's better than mine's. So,
I suppose, yeah. So, people who have played through Higurashi and Umineko, those are his big two, really, will know that those are very long stories which are quite in depth. They go into a lot of detail about life in the countryside or life on the island and the family life and internal politics of the Ushiromiya family in Umineko. So, yes. The stories which Rikishi tends to go into delve into a lot of internal strife, whether it's about an outsider coming to a small town or the internal strife and all sorts of bullshit that can happen in a large family. And I think that Higanbana also deals with the same sort of themes. It definitely goes into a lot of internal strife about people in school, different kinds of people in school, and how they deal with pressures, unfair circumstances. Bullying is the biggest theme, I think.
Yeah. It's it's interesting that, I think the ones that you've mentioned, the big ones, Higurashi, Umineko, and Higanbana, they all feature, either kids or young adults. I think, what age is Battler and Umineko? Is he 16, 18?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's maybe it's just typical of anime and manga and stuff like that. But they are all kind of younger characters. I'm trying to think, even Rose Gun Days. No, that character's older actually.
No, Leo is older in Rose Gun Days. Iwaihime is definitely in school. But I do have to point out that I don't think, while it is definitely true that a lot of the characters are younger characters, that's just how it is in anime, manga, etc. in general. I think this is partly inspired by Rikishi's previous work. Before he started making visual novels, he worked as a social worker. And a lot of his stories seem to be informed by the experiences that he had in that field and the things he saw. I definitely think that a few of the stories in Higanbana have been influenced by some of that work. I know that Satoko's story in Higurashi in particular was definitely influenced by what he saw in the social care system. And it was basically like his critique of how people fall through the gaps and are not properly looked after. How a lot of safeguarding fails. So, yeah.
So, social work is like a previous work colleague of mine's. Their wife was a social worker as well, and just even they were saying it's a tough job. You see, I think you can come across some of the worst of humanity in certain situations through that.
You do come across a lot of really bad stories, shall we say, people doing bad things,
especially with kids.
Definitely. My own experience in work, I can say I've seen some bad stuff involving kids. Thankfully, nothing to the extent. Well, I mean, nothing to the extent of what you see in these stories. Like, thankfully, I haven't come across any direct abuse victims, shall we say. I did have to deal with one case of alleged molestation, but that wasn't. I don't think that was true. And there've been more than a few instances of parents who are, divorcing, wanting to take custody of children, and then overstepping the boundaries, shall we say. It's a lot of, kids inspire strong emotions in people.
They do in anything around kids, but there's a lot of negativity that you can get, I think, from working social worker. You can end up with you can experience and see a lot of things, and that definitely shows in things like Umineko and Higurashi, where you are exposed to some of the worst parts of humanity. Is like give people a situation where it twists them and they're normal people, but via circumstance and various other things and a touch of magic, some here and there maybe, in some cases, people can end up doing really messed up things, and that does feature in especially in Umineko and Higurashi. Higanbana is a bit different, but
I wanted to touch on that as well. Higanbana is very different in its structure from the other two stories. I think even the title takes away from that as well, because it's not a When They Cry series.
Yep.
The three big When They Cry stories right now are Higurashi, Umineko, and Kikonia. All of them being labeled as When They Cry 1 and 2 for Higurashi, 3 and 4 for Umineko, and so far 5 for Kikonia. Higanbana stands out. It's not one of those stories, instead being labeled just by itself. But it also strikes me as quite interesting because I see it as being a sort of perfect in-between of Higurashi and Umineko. After going through the first visual novel out of 2, it really does come across as taking a lot of the themes of Higurashi, where you've got what seems to be a school that's isolated in the countryside somewhere, that's got a lot of students in it, and you've got your characters from there having to manage in that sort of situation. But then you have like the sort of magic battles and fantasy elements that you got from Umineko taking place over there. So it is that sort of in-between of the two in terms of styling. Graphically, I have to say it's a step up as well. Far superior to the sprite work that you see in Higurashi and Umineko. The artwork isn't top of the grade, or isn't... But it's decent, it's getting there. You can see it. There's a lot of dark shading on the characters as well, to give the impression that you're looking at people in a dark setting. Like, when I say dark setting, I mean a lack of light. Not when it is dark and oppressive as well in terms of tone. But you get what I mean.
Yeah, I like that though. I like the artwork. This is the thing, right? If you got look at Chaos Child that we played as well, we read through. Well, not all of it, but some of it. Like a lot of the visual novels is a generic art style, at least to the characters, or like a similar. It's like the anime art style, right? And one of the things about Umineko, and I mean, I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite here because I did read through it using the PlayStation 3 sprites, which are more anime style, but not typical anime now that I think about it.
They've redone sprite work.
Yes. But the original, it has its own charm, and it's a stamp in my head of what do you call it, Ryukushi. Yeah, and I do quite like it. It is, yeah, it's not great, but honestly, like, it gives it its own charm. It gives it its own unique twist, and that's important. As long as the story is great, and the stories, in my opinion, are amazing, right? You don't need to have amazing art, but having it, even though it's kind of, you could say, maybe a bit crappy compared to like your standard visual novel, it adds to it, in my opinion, just because it is different and unique. And it's not shit. It's just
It perfectly fits.
Homely.
I was about to say it perfectly fits the title of Dojin game, which is how it was first released anyway. Higurashi was released as a Dojin game at Comic-Con. In fact, I think all of them were released at Comic-Con, weren't they? And you know, it's Dojin, while it's got a sort of perverted connotation to it, actually just means like hand done or amateur work. And it is very much that, especially with the photoshopped background artwork, the sprites, which seem to be drawn in like hand done in paint or something. I don't know. But yeah, very, very personal. And it caught on. The Higurashi novels caught on by word of mouth. Like, they didn't sell out in the first Comic-Con, but then people were like, man, this is great. We want more. And it sort of rolled from there. Anyway, we have been rambling for a bit. Now let's talk about Higanbana in a little bit more depth. So the story, as I alluded to earlier, is set in a school of no given name, in the middle of a district which we don't know. We don't know much about where Higanbana is set. All we know is it's in a school somewhere. It seems to be set in the past, but we're also given no time frame as for when the story is set. So it's just a lot of mystery going around. But it's not really important. What is important is what is important in any Rikishi story, which is the characters. And in that, this is where Higanbana is also very different from the other stories, in that instead of going through one large storyline with either a time loop or multiple reinterpretations of a certain set of events, or whatever the fuck is going on in Kikonia, because we don't know yet, Higanbana is just a straight up series of stories. 7 stories in the first visual novel, which we've covered, and I believe there are 7 more in the second visual novel, which we have yet to cover, but we are very much looking forward to.
But they are all interlinked. It's based in the same school, same characters. It's not like...
Most importantly, the same continuity.
Yes.
It's not... That's what I mean. It's not looping. It's not a time loop or, like I said, an interpretation of a set of events which took place, which is what's happening in Umineko. Instead, we just get a series of stories which take place in this school. And because the school is, we're told, a very large school, that's the justification given for why there are so many different characters who are in the school and don't seem to meet one another. We start with the first story, which is called Meso Meso-san, Chapter 1. And now this is it's quite a hammer drop, actually, because it is a very dark dive right from the get-go into the story of Marie Moria, a girl who is bullied in school, although that's not the focus of the story, really, because we're told that her teacher, Kanamori, protects her from the bullies, tells them to get lost or beats them upside the head or whatever. But he then takes advantage of Marie by making her perform all sorts of deviant acts with him in one of the school bathrooms. You're already starting to get a little bit upset.
So... yeah, and this definitely hits harder, I think, being an adult, as opposed to... I don't know how it would feel being a kid, but I feel like it's bad. That was a tough one to go through, because I've forgotten about that now.
How could you forget about that?
No, I'd basically, because as we go on, you talk about the later episodes, the later parts of the story. We move on. We still have the main character from the first story, but in a different...
Yeah, let's finish this one and then we'll talk about how they act in the later stories, because So
yeah. Without going into detail about that later on, but it was bad. It was super down. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, and honestly, I was like, oh no.
Seemingly. So the story starts with them getting abused in the bathroom, Marie Moria.
Yep.
And her crying is overheard by one of the students. The title Meso Meso, which is given to her, is based on an onomatopoeia of crying, or a sound effect of crying, which I still don't see it. I still don't hear it. But
miso.
But yeah, meso. Like in the intro video, which I play at the start of almost every episode, shall we say, you do hear the students, briefly saying "ne meso-san kite," that sort of thing, where they're saying, "Hey, have you heard meso-san?" They refer to it like that. That's just her name, the title of the ghost. So Kanamori is very happy with himself. He's a distinguished teacher. He's apparently in line to become headmaster one day. Oof. Whether that's in his own imaginings or is factual, I don't know. We see it, a lot of the story is from his perspective, as he's actually the viewpoint character for most of the story.
Yep. Which that's what makes it worse. Like, it's a good thing in terms of storytelling, and it is kind of fascinating seeing everything from his point of view. So you don't know how much is skewed because of his bias, but it's bad to watch things happen and be relayed to you from the person perpetrating them in a way that's not that is kind of like positive, you know what I mean, and stuff. And just
we are invited into his thought process, and we do see how he justifies these actions to himself, and a lot of the justification comes across as quite valid. Because I say valid, what I mean is that we've seen people in real life come up with these sort of justifications when they commit things like murder or other serial actions of criminality. And it is generally like, oh, I am mighty and they are not, and therefore I have the right to act as I wish or choose to, and they should be grateful to me because I am giving them some sort of benefits or purpose or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is he looks down upon, what's her name?
Marie
more than the bullies in the class, because he basically just views her as nothing, and him protecting her, he's like, look at me protecting you, you peon. The least you can do is satisfy my kind of carnal urges. But the other part to the drive behind him doing this is because he feels he doesn't feel fulfilled. I don't think he feels fully fulfilled in his job, and it's this
that
desire
was definitely there. Yeah,
he doesn't feel like he has I think he doesn't feel like he has full agency over his life or over certain aspects of it. And so him degrading this other person, Marie, is his way of exercising power over the world, over another person, so that he can feel good about himself, because he, as you've said, he feels that he deserves it because he's achieved so much or whatever. Like he feels that he's done so well and he should be rewarded more or whatnot.
He says as much. He does say as much, that life was getting boring. He was not ready for that, and he felt like it was going nowhere. So this brought a new sense of I don't know, enjoyment to his life that he didn't get before.
Which he's supposed to be a young teacher, isn't he?
Yeah.
Not long out of college or uni or whatever.
He said that he went to a prestigious university, so he's definitely a gifted person as well. I'm not, or a hardworking person at the very least. I'm not sure how old he is. We're not given any age.
So, because I know, like, when you finish full-time education, and you move on into like the world of work, it is a massive shock to the system. At least it was for me, and I've talked to a couple other people around that time. In that, when you're in school and stuff, every year you're learning new things, right? Whether you like it or not. Different subjects or different difficulties, different things focused on, if it's the same subject. If you go on to higher education, you're studying, you're kind of focusing on something, but every year is a new thing. It's a higher year and you get closer to graduating with some sort of thing. When you go into the world of work, though, there is no structured path anymore.
Not necessarily, yeah. Like sometimes you may go into like a graduate profession where there is, but even that can take many, many years to get there. Or you could end up in some sort of job where it's a sort of grind and a routine and there's no actual clear purpose or sense of progression.
Yeah, and if you're in, I think if you do get into a thing where it's a structured graduate program of some sort, or what do you call it, apprenticeship or whatever, yeah, that will keep you busy for a while and you'll feel purpose. But then as soon as you're out of them, which I mean, they're not, most of them are not long, 3 years, 5 years. I mean, some will be longer, but most not. But once you're out of that and you're into it's down to you, and the day-to-day work is monotonous for most jobs. And it crushes the soul, because at least for me, you think this is my life. Wake up, go to work 9 to 5, come home, rinse and repeat, and not see any change. Every year you're just doing the same stuff, unless you do well and progress or change jobs or whatnot. But in your head, when you start that job, when you have that routine, it is like, this sucks. Also, you usually, I mean, not in Japan, but in the UK, you're working longer hours than you did study when you were in school.
Yeah, because we start, well, I don't know what the school hours are now, but when I was at school, it was 8:30 till 3:15. Nowadays, when you do work, it's generally 9 till 5, although you have to give time for travel as well. And especially if you're working in an office in, like, let's say Central London, in which case you have to take about 30 to 40 minutes on the tube one way, so you're leaving at about 8:20 in the morning to get there at 9. 8-ish, because there's more people than that, and you might miss your train, so you have to leave about 8-ish. And then when you're coming back in peak period, fucking hell, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're lucky if you're getting a half an hour. Most people it's like an hour journey on average, one way. So like that all adds up. And so anyway, going back to the teacher, like that feeling of, I've done all of this and I'm just teaching and it's a regular school. I don't think it's I don't know, is it a private school? I don't think so.
We're not told these details. All we know is that it's a very large school.
So yeah, like he feels that he should be in a better school at least, or in a better place, because he deserves more.
He feels frustrated about his position. I know he said that he wanted to be headmaster and that he had that sort of, that he was on that track. I'm not sure if he actually was, because like I said, a lot of this can be viewed as being his own delusions or his own self. He's just like, stroking his own ego, like, I'm this great. We don't actually know. All we know is that he's the homeroom teacher of this student. So moving on with the story, the school, because it's so large, a lot of the students, and I do want to touch on this because I'm not sure, this is one of those sort of cultural things which may not be immediately apparent. I think they're supposed to be fairly younger students, and by that what I mean is that I'm not even sure if they're necessarily high school aged. One of the so we're not ever told exactly what goes on between Marie and Kanamori, but we're left to imagine it for ourselves. However, we are told that Kanamori asks Marie to come in her underwear and a backpack. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Japanese school iconography, but the backpack is what they call the randoseru. It is generally seen as something that primary school students use. Right. So I think that may be a sort of hint as to whether it's his fantasy or the age group of the students. I don't know. I can interpret that one of two ways, that Kanamori is trying to live out some kind of pedophilic fantasies, or that the students are actually that young and she has that backpack. I don't know. I don't actually know, because like I say, we're not given these sort of details. We're just given hints. Anyway, so yeah, so things go quite a bit bad. First of all, one of the students overhears Marie crying after one of those sessions, and she tries to talk to the student and he runs away. That student then starts spreading rumors about a ghost in the toilets. Kanamori hears this and he's like, fuck, one day people will find out. Or if Marie graduates and then tells people later on, I'll be fucked anyway. We need to deal with this. This is not a situation that will last permanently. And the first thing that pops into his mind is that he should kill her. Around the same time, Maria is in the library thinking, she has to meet with Kanamori again. She is visited by the next main character, and most likely the actual main character of the entire series, although she's not so much a protagonist. She's more like... I don't even know how to describe it. Sometimes she's like a rival character, sometimes she's helping, sometimes she's a bad guy. But Higanbana is Higanbana is the main sort of ghost or yokai that we meet in all of these stories. I said ghost. Yokai is like a type of spirit or demon.
Spirit, yeah. She's she doesn't really. You never really fully know if she's a good person or bad. You know what I mean? Like she's always. It's almost like she's playing both sides, and in the story, you'd never. I mean, she seems, in my opinion, good overall, but she's definitely quite happy to do some horrible, horrible things.
As far as I'm concerned, she likes to act on her own whims and desires. That's pretty much it. I went back to check, and I remember Crackdealer asking if we're ever told what a story is, and at the time I didn't remember, and I said I don't think we are, but we are. We are told that she is the spirit of a girl who haunted a doll in the infirmary when she died. There's an old doll in the infirmary of the school.
I know she was a doll, or she was like a possessed doll or something in the infirmary. I missed the bit where she said that she was a girl that died and possessed it.
This is a story that's told to Kanamori by the school nurse. So whether it's true or not, we don't know. But that's the story associated with Higanbana. She's a doll that in the infirmary that dances in the nighttime.
Can we just give a heads up? An acknowledgement of the school nurse, who is awesome, but also she seems to be more aware of things than we might be led to believe. Like she seems to be like, she's played as just school nurse, but I do feel like
we may be jumping the gun on this spoilercast a little bit, because we have only done 7 out of 14 chapters. There's a second visual novel after all. However, yeah, I got the feeling that she might have more to her than we've seen so far. Because she has a sprite for one, a character sprite, but she hasn't done anything in all these 7 stories yet.
She looks like an undercover. I don't know, right? So the vibes I get, right, just from my experience of, I don't know, other animes, she's like either undercover, I don't know, not police, but something like that, or some sort of person undercover, or she's like, I don't know, she definitely, there's something there where she's definitely going to have to feature the second part at some point, because they've hinted, the fact that she's got the sprite, but just I don't know, the way she carries herself as well makes me think that she's a main character of some sort that will do something of note that will affect the story.
Perhaps. We don't know yet. There's no overarching story either. But anyway, where was I?
I mean, there is the overall setting that we are.
That's a setting. That's not a story. That's just a setting.
True.
Yes, Higanbana meets with Marie in the library and says, "I've heard that there's a new yokai in the school called Meso-Meso-san, and it's possibly you." She essentially invites Marie to become a yokai. Marie decides that she will, but that means she will have to throw away her human life. So that gives her a bit of determination, although she doesn't sort of realize it at the time. When she goes to meet with Kanamori after that, she starts saying to him, "Don't really want to do this anymore." And she says that she's about to say that, it's over. Kanamori says he's got some tapes that he would release if she was to be like, if she was to do something like this, She says he might get in a bit of trouble as well. Now, I remember you telling me about this. Yeah, she did say that she thinks he might get in trouble.
Yeah.
There's actually a point to that. I didn't pick up on this when I went through it the first time. When I went over it to just check that I remembered everything correctly, it actually dawned on me that what happened later on was Kanamori totally being a fucking idiot and gaslighting the fuck out of her. So, in this setting, what happens is Kanamori's like, fuck, I have to kill her now. And so he chokes her to death. And that's it. That's Marie. She's dead. Now, Kanamori's like, fuck, now what? And a bunch of students, at the right moment, best timing in the world, decide to roll up, knock on the door, and do the Mesa-san story. Which is to knock on the door and knock on the door and see if Mesa-san is in there crying. And if she is, she should ask you to listen to her story. And if you listen to the story, you're fucked. She will kill you. So when that happens, Kanamori decides to act as Mesa-san, and the students then run away scared. He feels emboldened by that and says that he has basically become Mesa-san. He then takes Marie and throws her into a septic tank under a toilet to get rid of her body.
Yeah, can I just I want to focus on that for a bit. That really pissed me off, that bit. Not only does he, I mean, it's fair enough, it's a way to get rid of the body, but even in death, Marie's body is desecrated by, was it Kanamori? And it was like you couldn't even just bury her or something. I mean, I realized he was short for time.
He was short for time. He wanted to get rid of the body as quickly as possible under the cover of night, and so he just went to the school toilets. One of the old ones.
Apparently, they have a septic tank sitting there. Yeah,
there's an older one. It was one of the ones outside or something, and yeah, he threw her body into the septic tank because he said the people there don't clean it out properly anyway. So it's really unlikely they'll find her, and I don't think they found her. We're never given any indication that anyone made any progress on the case of Marie's disappearance.
No, that really fucking.
Yeah,
that really annoyed me.
We'll talk about Kanamori in a bit. I want to finish the story. So he feels really glad that he's gotten away with it, but he also noticed that one of Marie's buttons was missing. When he goes to the library after getting injured a few days later, the doll throws a button at him, which in his mind triggers the memory. He's like, oh fuck, she's missing a button, isn't it? What if the police find her? Because the police have been crawling around after Marie disappeared, but they haven't made any progress on the case. But he's still paranoid. If there's any emotion that Rikishi is really good at eliciting in his characters in any of his stories, it's paranoia. And Kanamori is really paranoid at that point. The school nurse tells him the story of the doll because after the button fell on him, he looked up and he saw the doll of Higanbana sitting on top of I think it's a shelf, I'm not sure. So Higanbana sort of whispers to him saying, hey, you know what? That button ain't disappeared. That means it's right where it was. That means people can find it. And he gets really paranoid. So under the cover of night, he decides to go and get the button. He laughs to himself a lot because he realizes he's in the school alone. It's really dramatic, like overly dramatic. After searching through what is described as a really filthy toilet room with a squat toilet, he finds the button and is happy with himself. Flushes it down the toilet, and there we go. But while he's in the toilet, Marie then appears outside the door as Mesa-san. This is the part where things get a bit difficult for him, that is to say, because Marie, prior to this, had been, as a ghost, approached by Higanbana, who told her, apologies, that she had a bit of problems now, because Kanamori had declared himself as Mesa-san. There were now 2 candidates to be Mesa-san. And the school yokai, of which there are 7 major ones called the 7 Mysteries, had set a condition that only one candidate can be. There can only be one candidate for the role of Mesa-san. So they had to work out who would prevail. We're told there was a vote, but we're also told that Higanbana had a different idea. And that's it. So Marie shows up in front of Kanamori and essentially, as a ghost, starts saying to him, you know, this is a thing, you know, he shouldn't have done that, basically. He wants her revenge. But Kanamori, this is where he goes off on one and says to her, it's her fault she's dead. First of all, she never figured out that she could have told the police, or that she could have asked her parents for help, or turned to her teachers for help, or anyone for help. And it's her fault because in a society, you should be relying on the people around you. And she had weakness and timidity and didn't rely on anyone. However, yeah, that's just him being a fucking twat, gaslighting her, because she did say to him that if she talked about the tapes, or if he tried to release the tapes, he would be in trouble. So she did pick up on that, despite what he said. So you were right when we were recording that. I hadn't picked up on that.
Yeah, no, she realized that. She's like, you're just won't you get in trouble as well? Because even I was like, that's a stupid thing to try and pull. Oh, I'll release the tapes. You're in the tapes, mate. Like you're showing yourself in the tapes because obviously you want to keep these for posterity. So like releasing the tapes would just be like suicidal for you as well, and I never understood that.
Yep.
And luckily Marie spotted that as well.
Although it didn't really do her any good in the end. Marie as a ghost isn't really any more powerful than she was as a person, though. And apparently her form is corporeal as well, because what happens next is Kanamori gets emboldened by his own fucking hype. And then he chokes her to death again. So then he's happy he's killed the same person twice. Higanbana appears and says this was a test. Who should become Mesa-san? And the winner is not Kanamori, because it should be the person who's pitiful in a toilet. The pitiful ghost in the toilet, and that's Marie, not him. So she gets reborn again, this time as Mesa-san, and she kills Kanamori and gets a revenge on him.
I never understood why. I felt like it looked like the Kanamori was the one that should be chosen because he was taking over the he was calling himself Mesa-san, stuff like that, and according to the way the game was going, the visual novel was going.
It was leading us down the idea that maybe Higanbana would side with him and have him appointed to the position of Mesa-san.
Yeah, and I feel like the reason what happened was she was like, I don't like you.
Well, that's very much a Higanbana thing. We see this throughout the game where she does things based on her own feelings and desires. It felt like it was supposed to be a fight to the death, is what you're saying. But then she says no. The actual condition is who fits the condition of the story better. And you're not pitiful. You're not crying in the toilet. You're openly proud of yourself.
But also, I mean, she clearly when she came into contact with Marie, it was before Marie was killed, right? She clearly has some sort of liking for Marie.
Yeah.
To propose. So this is the thing, right? I was saying the overall setting is, I mean, it links the stories together. Is that there are these 7 yokai of the school, and Higanbana being
the third rank.
3.
Yeah, the third rank.
And the Higanbana was saying to Marie that she could join that and become the 8th, and that is like a conjoining. For me, it's like the overall arcing story is that there are these characters and everything's happening is kind of like interlinked with these
characters. It's more world building, yeah, because we meet several of the other yokai as the stories go on.
And I do feel that they are leading towards, in part 2, this is going to be the main thing, right? We're going to see more of them. There's going to be something that might go into more detail as to what they're up to and all that. We've only seen a few, I think, so far. But
well, in the Spoilercast so far, we've only met Higanbana and Marie, it should be said as well, because she becomes Mesa-san, the 8th rank.
Do you mean for the first episode so far?
Yeah, because we're just talking about the first episode right now.
Okay. So like, also I want to just point. You know how you said that the Kanamori was like he went to the toilet and they're pointing out that the toilet was disgusting. You know, this is where he was trying to find the button.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because that was his toilet that he kept bringing Marie to.
Yeah, I know.
Depraved arcs, and I was just like, "You're a fucking scumbag, man."
Yeah, we get it. He's fucking terrible. Anyway, The overall impression I got of this episode is it's very much a prologue chapter. It sets up the basic framework for which the later stories are told. In that we have a student who has an issue, and then we have a yokai who helps to get involved, or gets involved to mess things up. Things happen, shit goes bad, but we have an ending which may be seen as positive or negative, depending on your perspective. However, I do think that most of the outcomes are fairly positive. But each and every one of these stories does have a sort of moral attached to it, and I think this moral of this story was Kanmori telling Marie that she should have relied on the people around her more.
And I felt that was a little bit unfair because she'd said her family don't give a shit about her.
Yeah.
The teachers are not going to listen to her in reality.
Which is what he was preying on as well. He mentioned that he knew that she wouldn't talk to anyone because she's ostracized by her family and wouldn't have the courage to speak to the police.
Yeah, like he's just being a hypocrite. Or just like, no, it's not a hypocrite per se, he is using both sides of that argument. One to like,
it's gaslighting,
get away with
straight
it.
and pure,
Yeah.
full projection, and just all the manner of emotional abuse that he's capable of.
I was quite happy when he got his comeuppance, but
it was a very good, satisfying ending, I think. I do believe you, and I think Loopy as well, said it felt a little bit more standard than you were expecting, but I think it was perfectly fitting. It was a good story, it was an excellent prologue, and I don't give scores, so I'll just leave it at that. It was an interesting one, and set the tone very nicely. It also was a very hard-hitting one, because it started off with very heavy topics, which I think may have lessened the impact of some of the following stories. Now, the second story is called The Spirit Camera, and we have met with a new student. I say new student, we met with someone else, Takashi Nonomiya, who is in the journalism club. He finds a camera in the back of the, I think it's a classroom which they meet in. I can't remember if it was a classroom or a library or whatever. But he's always had a fascination with taking pictures, because in his mind, they show you the absolute truth. That's his philosophy. I'm not going to argue too much with it, but I don't agree. We know that pictures can be warped, perspectives can be
taken advantage of.
Yeah, shall we say. A picture may be part of something. It may not be an entirety. So there's definitely something to be said about interpretations, but whatever.
And just to be clear, you're talking about, like, this is before the advent of like digital imagery and digital photography. And
definitely, because the camera he has is a Polaroid. So yeah, you take a picture and you snap a picture, and the photo is immediately produced in physical form. There's no digital anything with that. So he's very happy with this camera, but there's a ghost story associated with it, which is that maybe it will show you something you don't see. So the students sort of egg him on, and he decides to take a picture of the entire class. And while going over the photograph later in the evening, he realizes there's an extra student there, a student that wasn't there in the actual class. Higanbana sort of provokes him into researching what happened. She tells him to check the shoe lockers. He checks the shoe lockers, and he finds that there was a student who used to be in that class, in fact the same class, which was a student by the name of Marie Moria. So he decides to find the Moria address. I'm not entirely certain how he did this, but he found the address and went to talk to the family. He meets with Mrs. Moria at the front entrance, shows her the picture. At first, she has no idea who he's talking about when he says he'd like to speak with Marie. But then when she sees the picture, she starts going apeshit because memories return to her about her missing daughter. So the memory of Marie Moria has been completely erased from the student body and everyone else.
Which would then explain why the police have stopped looking for her?
That could be the case as well. We're never told about what happened with the police investigation, but I suppose it logically follows that if no one remembers her, they wouldn't have any investigation to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he runs away because she's going completely crazy. While running away, he runs into a very strange man in a dark alleyway. Man with an eye... no, a monocle, rather. Not an eye patch.
Is this the guy that looked like Santa?
That's one way of putting it. I think Crack Dealer described him as looking like an elderly British person. Yeah, anyway, he's an older dude, and he basically confronts and sort of traps Takeshi in an alleyway. It turns out that this is the number 1 ranked yokai. He's known as the Headmaster.
Apt.
Apt indeed. Higanbana appears in the alleyway, and the two have a sort of showdown, basically. Which then leads to the Headmaster asking Takeshi directly, which does he value more, the truth or peace? After thinking it over for a bit, and he doesn't actually voice it, but the yokais have shown that they can read minds. After thinking over it for a bit, he decides that he sides on truth rather than peace.
Yes.
The reason being, a photograph will always show the truth. The truth of that photo led him to discover Marie Moria and her disappearance. That was a truth that was hidden, but he uncovered it. And so that value is firmly set in his mind. The the Headmaster is satisfied with that, although he doesn't agree with it. He thinks it's youthful naivete to choose truth over peace. But he leaves. And Takeshi goes along with Higanbana, who decides to invite herself to his house for some reason. This is one of those moments where she's clearly just doing whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So she's hanging out with him, acting like a real girl instead of the yokai she is. And he's thinking, oh god, oh golly, there's a girl in my room. I should get the good tea.
Japanese as hell, man.
But while they're having tea, she's looking over his photographs because he keeps a photo album. Now, one of the memories from his past is the reason he got into photography. And the reason for his philosophy entirely is that he was once unfairly accused of damaging an anatomy doll in school. What happened was there's a group of girls who were playing. One of them crashed into the doll, knocked it over, broke it, and then ran away before she could get done for it. Instead, while he was there and he saw what happened, he got the blame. And so he felt that was quite unfair, and that if he had a photo at the time, he had a camera at the time rather, he could have taken a photograph and shown the truth. In terms of moments of clarity in hindsight, it's not his best one, but it's okay, I suppose. Anyway, so he's showing off his photos to Higanbana, and she's like, fuck this, and she rips his album up. Tears it in half and says that there's a clear split here. Before her tear, the photos there have the sense of cruelty which she actually really likes. After that, they're all boring and dull, and she doesn't like them. He can't tell the difference, but it turns out, after she starts provoking and prodding him more, it turned out what happened was, and they had completely forgotten about this, he stalked that girl who had broken the anatomy doll and taken photos of her. He started harassing her with the photos by sending them to her I think leaving it in a shoe locker. And she grew paranoid because someone's stalking her. Obviously that's harassment. And it led to her killing herself.
Yep.
I had actually completely forgotten there was a story of suicide earlier on, but yeah. It's because it's not graphically depicted, it's referred to in passing. So she had taken her own life, and that was his sin, basically. And that is why Higanbana was provoking him. Maybe she was going to eat him later, I don't know. Anyway, at that moment, she summons the spirit of the dead girl, Yoko Numata, who says she's been freezing in hell this whole time. This is the part I don't understand. Apparently, hell is cold for them.
I think there's different parts. Maybe she was in a certain part.
I'm not entirely certain. It might be referring to something specific over there. Local folklore, local religion, I don't know. But yeah, she's come for her revenge. After talking it over for a bit, they both decide to forgive each other. They're apologizing to each other. Takeshi even thinks that maybe he'd be better off dying and going to hell with her.
which was it was weird, but also oddly touching.
Very touching, very touching. Weird, but definitely very touching. This is when Higanbana loses it and she starts getting evil. I say evil. Angry is better. She doesn't like this. She wanted the kind of ending which would be satisfying for her, which would have involved revenge, murder, I don't know. But she was not happy with this outcome. This is when Marie comes to protect Takeshi. A fight ensues and essentially Higanbana is driven off. Marie tells Takeshi to take one last picture because there's only one last photograph left in the camera. Because now Yoko Numata is at peace and that photo proves it. So he's satisfied with himself, he's satisfied with the life, and, well, things carry on. It was a really good story, but it feels a little bit weird. I don't know. I didn't agree with some of the... some of the philosophy in it regarding truth. I can definitely see where they're coming from in terms of peace over truth, or truth over peace, but... it was okay. I liked the story, though, and I liked the characters.
I liked how it ended. I thought it was going to go bad. I thought it was going to go south, man. Super south. Especially when they started revealing the truth of what he'd forgotten.
A lot of these stories actually do have the feeling that they could go completely terribly wrong by the end of it. And on that note, let's talk about the third story, The Princess's Lie. So this is a very short one, and I was left unsatisfied by it. However, I thought it was a very good story in terms of its story itself.
I don't think, if I remember this correctly, I didn't like... Well, it wasn't a bad story. It made me feel uncomfortable, I think, a little bit.
Let's dive into it then. So the story is regarding this girl, the princess. What was it? Midori Kusunoki. And one interesting tidbit I'll tell you. She has the most fan art of any of the girls in Higanbana. Higanbana no Saku Yoroni. On Pixiv. There's loads of artwork of Midori for some reason.
Weird.
Yeah. Anyway, she's the princess of the class. Everyone loves her. She's adored by all, boys and girls. She's in the drama club, and she's got the leading role in the play of Rokkenjima, where she will play the lead actress. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's been watching the show, the anime that's based on this play as well. So, yeah, clear allusions to Umineko with that. But anyway, she also meets a yokai called the Black Tea Gentleman, who gave her... Well, let's back up a bit. She met the Black Tea Gentleman when she was not popular in the previous class. And she wished she would be popular. And so the Black Tea Gentleman made it happen, and he said he'll take a bit of a soul for it. We're led to believe that this may be leading to a series of events in which she suffers pain for no discernible reason. Whether it's pain on the hands, pain in the head, or some sort of physical injury which she can't tell why she's got it. At some point, she also notices that while she's eating, suddenly out of nowhere, like crushed up insects appear in her food. Slowly and surely, this sort of wears on her nerve. She starts going a little bit crazy. But the Black Tea Gentleman tells her, no, just focus on your play. Things will be fine. Things will be fine. Just focus on your play. This culminates in her going to the drama club room, taking on the lead character's dress and putting it on, whereby the other person who wanted to play the lead role, the girl who gets bullied by everyone and who was the previous princess, she says, "What are you doing? That's my dress." Marie appears in the drama club because Marie just likes to sort of interfere with things now.
Yep.
She's a yokai in the school. I thought she'd be stuck in the toilet, but she seems to get free reign to do what she wants.
I mean, Higanbana is not stuck in the nursery.
In the infirmary.
Room.
Yeah, but Higanbana is a much more higher ranking yokai with more yokai power, as we're told. Well, whatever. Whatever. So, it turns out, as her mental barriers start to break down, we see what is actually going on here. The power that the Black Tea Gentleman has is not to grant wishes, but to allow you to believe a lie. And the lie which the princess told to herself is that she's the princess. She's loved by everyone. She wanted the life that the other girl had, the other princess. And so she's being shown a make-believe of that life. But in reality, she's still being bullied. All the pain she suffers, she feels it sometimes. The crushed up insects in the food, she saw that. That was actually happening to her. So yeah, that's where the story ends. We just learn that she's living a lie and that her life actually sucks. But, you know, she's in the delusional world she wanted to be in. Now, this is the story where I started to follow what you asked early on, which was that, is there a way of interpreting each story with no supernatural elements to it? Kind of like how in Umineko there are two ways you can interpret every story, whether there was supernatural elements, magic, or not, and it was just humans. So I started to try and do this, and I found reasonable explanations for every story, except one, which might be a bit obvious to you which one it was. So for the first story, it's pretty simple. Marie gets abused by a teacher. The teacher then kills her in the toilet, throws her body away, and then later on he dies. He may have killed himself at some point. I don't know. After being driven mad by his own actions. I think that's a fair, reasonable explanation for that story.
Mm-hmm.
The second story is also just a guilt one. Takashi could have been feeling guilty about the girl which was killed. Who killed herself, rather. There's not much else to that story. He has a camera which shows him stuff. I mean, he could just be seeing what he already knew. Third story, this one. It's just her believing her own make-believe world.
True.
Yeah, so you can interpret most of these stories, if not all of them, to fit some sort of rudimentary, shall we say, boring interpretation of events.
An interpretation of events that doesn't involve the supernatural.
Yes, hence boring. Just saying it. Okay, the fourth story. Also an insubstantial one, but quite interesting because this is the first clear link to Umineko. We see a girl, one of those Chuni types, whose name I've completely forgotten now. Yeah, I've forgotten her name. She's the girl with the eye patch.
Oh, I feel like I've forgotten this one.
You must have, yeah. It's another short story. So essentially what happens is there's a shrine, a small shrine on the school grounds. And it's damaged one day, apparently by some students who are playing ball or something.
I kind of remember this now, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So essentially, that group of students then start suffering misfortunes. One of the girls in the class is seen as creepy because she has an eye patch and she seems to be a Chuni type. So one of the other students goes up to her and says, "Help me, I don't know what's going on." She says, "It's the spirit of the guardian of that shrine. It's angry because he broke it." Meanwhile, the yokais are talking amongst themselves. Marie is seeing this and went to the shrine and is like, "Yeah, this shrine guardian is causing problems." Higanbana doesn't buy it because she actually knows the guardian of the shrine and calls him out. It's Sakuno Shin, who looks exactly like Sakutaro from Umineko. There's a little boy with a sort of a lion a lion theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got lion ears then and a scarf and very loose-fitting clothes. But he's a very small, young child and he can't really do much of harm. And Marie sees this and realizes, okay, so it's not the spirit. Then what is it? So in the dead of night, one of the students who did the shrine in was injured, and one of the other ones is going to be, injured next, is what they're thinking. Marie goes and finds out that it's actually the Chuni girl whose name I've forgotten. I can't remember it. Yeah, I can't remember it. So she tells her, because that girl was going to injure the other girl. When Marie asks her why she's doing this, she says it's because they didn't believe her. She sensed that the Shrine Guardian was angry. And it's true, the Shrine Guardian was angry. That didn't mean he was going to do anything about it. And so she felt frustrated. Yeah, so she was frustrated that no curse manifested, so she saw it fit to start injuring those students. She was going to throw a fire hydrant on top of the girl who was walking in the walking home, shall we say.
Yeah, because it started small, didn't it? Was it not a rock or something?
It was. I don't remember what it was. I think they tripped or something like that. Yeah. No, it was a chair. It was a chair or something that fell from a classroom window.
Which, if you get hit from a chair from that's fallen from a classroom window, man,
that will hurt
you out.
Yeah,
dude, that will kill you if it hits you.
No. Well, it depends how it hits you, I suppose. But it took that student to the hospital. But this fire hydrant would definitely have killed this next student. Marie tells whatever the fuck her name is to stop, and after she's had a moment of reflecting, she says, "Okay, she will." Again, another sort of dissatisfying story, but still all right. You know, we're filling in the gaps in the school. It's the next story though, where things really, really rocket up. And and in retrospect, I would have added a content warning to this one. I did add a content warning to the 7th story because it contains suicide depictions, but this one has animal abuse in it. So the next story is Hamelin's Castanets.
Which one was this one? Hamelin's Castanets.
If you don't remember it, you're going to enjoy it when I'm going over it. Hamelin's Castanets concerns a student, Hikaru Nihei. He looks after the animals in the animal raising committee or something like that at school.
Right.
But he's bullied in class. But when it comes to being bullied, he's not shoved or punched or anything like that. He's verbally picked on, and it really drives him up the wall. So he takes out his frustrations by going to the rabbit pen and abusing the rabbits.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, how could you forget this one? This one's really great. So does
he not boot them or something?
Yeah, he kicks them, punches them, throws them across the area, you know, does all kinds of horrible things to the rabbits that won't leave a mark, but does cause them injury.
I mean,
and suffering.
What a bastard.
Marie comes to him while he's abusing the rabbits, but she doesn't see it. This is one of those appearances I find really odd, because Marie just shows up at this point, and Hikaru basically yells at her to get lost, and she goes away, and we don't see her again. I don't know why she showed up, but
it's interesting because you know how he's picking on what he sees to be weaker, inferior beings, right? Animals. It's a bit like the teacher and Marie.
Well, I mean, that's what it's about. It's all about bullying, isn't it? Several kinds of bullying, different kinds of bullying. I mean, in the second story, it was Takashi Nonomiya who was the bully. He was the one who was harassing the girl by sending her pictures. In the third story, the princess was bullied extensively, physically, and you get the idea. In this story, he is bullied, and so because he's bullied, he picks on others. But he doesn't have the strength to fight back, so he picks on creatures creatures which are inferior to him, rabbits. He's in charge of looking after them, and so he decides to just pick on them.
Creatures that he perceives as inferior to him.
Creatures he perceives as inferior to him.
Yeah, I mean, bullying, I wouldn't call this bullying, I'd just call it a straight up abuse, man.
Yeah, it is.
That overall theme.
It is.
I don't like bullying. Yeah, bullying does cover this, but I feel like it's too weak a word.
It's
for
a
the
consequence.
Stuff that goes on.
It's a consequence of bullying. He is a bullied person who then goes on to bully others. Now, what happens here is a new yokai who's a yokai who's new in town, shall we say, comes up to him. He calls himself Hamelin, and he's already set up his own story, but he wants it to spread in the school. So his story is that if you go to the music room and you hear the playing of the castanets at nighttime, you'll be turned into a rat and then led away by Hamelin. Now, this is obviously an allusion to the Pied Piper of Hamelin, which is where he gets his name from.
The Pied Piper, yeah.
I didn't make that connection while I was recording the video, so I feel like an idiot.
He looks like... Does he not look like the Pied Piper? Does he not have a pipe somewhere?
He doesn't have a pipe. He's got a mask on, and his body is in a blue cloak, which doesn't show its form. So it's really hard to make out what he looks like exactly. He has castanets, not a pipe, and not a flute or anything like that. Anyway, he tells Hikaru that he would like to offer him a deal. If he brings victims to him in the music room at nighttime, he will allow Hikaru to take his abuse out on them. Take his frustrations out on them. Because he needs victims in order to spread his story. So Hikaru agrees and says, but instead of rats, make it rabbits. Hamelin's like, yep, okay. So Hikaru takes the bullies who bullied him and lures them at nighttime into the music room, where they're turned into rabbits by Hamelin, and then Hikaru kills them and drops them off in the rabbit pen, where they're then seen by the students and the teachers the next day, who realize something horrible has happened. They think maybe there's some kind of killer about, killing rabbits or something. They also notice that there's more rabbits than they'd expect, and they don't understand that, but figure that maybe some of the rabbits had, started breeding without them realizing it. They are rabbits after all.
I think I fell asleep through this. This is why, and I woke up near the end. I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Wow, the story was so engaging that you fell asleep.
No, it's not that. It's just that you come out late, and I was tired.
Yeah. Anyway, so the students do make the connection that 4 students are missing and 4 rabbits were killed. They start thinking that the rabbits are maybe some kind of warning sign that if there's a rabbit that's killed, that means there's a student who's going to be taken away by some kind of murderer or something. Which is, to be fair, not altogether incorrect. It's just backwards. And Hikaru feels happy about himself. He's like, ha 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 ha, they don't know that was me. Then he gets pissed off by the teacher. One of the teachers pisses him off for some reason. I think it was the... Yes, I do remember now. It was the teacher in his room, his homeroom. And he said to Hikaru, look, the reason you need to be better with your classmates. Can you be a bit lighter on them? Now, Hikaru had perceived himself as a victim. This is the part where we're seeing that the reason why the students were picking on him is because he was fucking up his own ass. He really had a stick up his own ass. He was like, I'm the best student in this class. And it was true. He had a shit class with him. But that doesn't mean, he gets better grades than them. So he's trying to show them how to study. And what he did was, one of the girls, he took her notebook and threw it in the bin, saying, this is fucking worthless.
I remember this.
And he's like, no, this is how you take notes. So the whole time he was telling us that, look, I taught them how to take notes. It was him going off on one, and the students hated him for it because he was a fucking dickhead. So yeah, he deserved everything that came to him. So he decides, I'm going to kill this teacher, fucking prick. And he tells Hamelin that he'd like the teacher to be his next victim. Hamelin tells him, yes, but the condition is the teacher needs to be in the music room. And so they concoct a harebrained scheme on how to make the teacher in the music room at nighttime. At nighttime, he goes to carry out his scheme, and he goes to the staff room, realizes there's no one there. Instead, Higanbana's there. She's been visiting Hikaru every now and then, laughing at him, saying he's, picking on creatures which are weaker than him. And she decides to confront him. And Hamelin, because Hamelin is a new yokai, and she feels that he's going above his station.
He's infringed upon the area that the realm of the 7 yokai of the school.
There are more yokais than the 7, but it seems like she didn't want him to be there. She accused him of being sent by someone who didn't want Marie to be one of the yokais at the school either. And he said that he was sent, but we don't really find out anything further about that. So maybe there is an overarching story, because this is never picked up on later. Anyway, so basically a fight breaks out where Hikaru tells Hamelin to turn Higanbana into a rabbit. She says to him, how can you do that? We're not in the music room. And he's like, yeah, but I swapped the staff room sign for a music room sign. So this is now the music room.
What? Is that how that works? Okay.
It worked. It worked because Hamlin did his stupid castanets thing, which made me laugh every time because I just imagine him going with the castanets. Right? And it's fucking stupid. She turns into a rabbit. He's like, ha ha ha, I got you now. And she's like, yeah, all I could do is move my teeth. That's all I need. She fucking rips him to shreds from the inside by darting into his mouth and tearing his internal organs out.
What? As a rabbit?
As a rabbit, she does that to Hamlin. So he's fucked and he's dead. And then she takes his castanets for herself and turns Hikaru into a rabbit. This is where she asks him if he'd like to apologize. He says, I'm sorry. And she says, to whom? He says, to you. And then she just tosses him into the pit of rabbits. Because obviously, he's too shit. Now, the whole point Higanbana was there was she wanted to show him what it was to kill someone. He had killed the people as rabbits. So she showed him a memory of basically making him relive that murder, but instead of them being rabbits, them being people.
Oh.
She wanted to teach him a lesson that, you know, to take a human life is a very big thing. It's significant. And you don't have the fucking balls for it. That's why you take it on rabbits. And he did feel that he felt that pain and sickness and he felt bad for it, but he still fucking deserved what he got. She turned him to a rabbit, threw him into the pit of rabbits where, and we're not really told exactly, but she says, rabbits like to copulate with the same sex. Have fun. Yeah, that was my reaction as well, man. That was a fucking hilarious ending. I'm like, okay, I don't know if they'll eventually kill him or not, but whatever.
I mean, but he will get to copulate as well. I don't know, like it doesn't feel like a good enough end.
He has been permanently turned into a rabbit. Now, I was really, really racking my brain trying to figure out a justified way of interpreting this story in terms of no supernatural elements. Because I was like, how can I? There were 4 kids who were killed as rabbits. And we got the main character turning into a rabbit at the end. Then I figured he's the viewpoint character, so a lot of it can be disregarded as his delusions. He definitely killed those guys. He even feels a recollection of killing them as guys. So it could be that he just murdered those students. And
he's like, they were rabbits.
Yeah, he's sort of make-believing as rabbits, and then, you know, he goes mentally crazy and thinks he's a rabbit as well. Maybe he dies himself, I don't know.
Maybe he's in the rabbit hatch.
I don't know. Jumping about as a rabbit.
Being attacked by the other rabbits.
Yeah, we don't see what happens to him after that. Yeah, and I also said that, you know, maybe the rabbits were just breeding. I think that's reasonable to assume. Why there were more rabbits that were killed.
Maybe he was just killing the rabbits.
He could have been.
They were breeding and they were making more rabbits and he was killing them.
He could have been. But honestly, the yokai stories are so gripping when you actually go through them that I'm very happy to take the supernatural stories at face value. So yeah, that was Hamlin's Castanets, chapter 5. It was a very good one. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. It was a step up from the previous 2 chapters, which were quite a letdown. And it had that proper ghost story quality about it as well. Yeah. So, chapter 6 is a departure, because it's not really a new story, it's a follow-up to chapter 2. It's a bit of a twist ending in that respect. We just see the daily life of this one girl in school who seems a little bit too optimistic, and a little bit too happy about enjoying herself, despite the fact that Maria and Higanbana are watching her, and Higanbana's trying to make that student's life miserable by making her late for school, making her fall down and get injured so that she has to go to the infirmary, and thereby miss PE class. Like, even still, this student is very happy and enjoying their life, saying that I only have the life, I have to enjoy it.
I remember this, yeah, and it was interesting.
It turned out that this was actually the spirit of Yoko Numata, the girl who killed herself in chapter 2 after being harassed by Takeshi. We even see a sort of different version of events play out in that day, where she runs into the anatomy doll, breaks it, but then owns up to it. So it's kind of like she's trying to have that perfect day, or it should have gone this way.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, apparently the deal was that she gets to live one day in school as a sort of good day, and then she gets taken out of hell. And is this better, really? Her soul will be eaten by Higanbana instead. I don't know if that's better than freezing in hell, but okay. That was what they agreed on. And Marie doesn't like this agreement, so when Higanbana's about to eat Yoko, Marie just sort of storms off saying, well, I've got strawberries, fuck you.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna have any.
Yeah, not having any for you. Yeah, get fucked is right. So Higanbana sort of like gets put out and just lets Yoko's soul go. Where it goes to, we're not told.
Maybe heaven.
I would like to believe that. But anyway, yeah, that's one of those really liked chapters, and I would like more of those actually, where we just see normal stuff at school and we get to see the yokai just hanging out, because I like Higanbana and I like Marie, and I would like to see them just hanging out more.
Yeah, I was happy with that. I was pissed at Higanbana until the very end, where she's like,
where she's acting as an agent of chaos, just making things happen to get in the way of this student's day.
But especially the bit where she's gonna like eat the soul, and I was like, oh, fuck off. And she decides not to, because she's put off and lets the soul go, and I was like, oh, it was a nice ending.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was a nice ending. And one of the things I want to touch on after we've gone through the stories is the music. The music really drives home the points, the emotions, and really gives it that proper Ryukishi feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so chapter 7. This is a big one. I was getting very angry when I was recording this one, going through the story. Now, in the beginning, I felt compelled to give a content warning, because what we see first is an unnamed student go to the roof of the school and kill herself by jumping from the roof. Marie is at the roof trying to stop her, trying to convince her from killing herself, but unable to do so, ultimately. Now, one of the reasons why I felt compelled to give this content warning, because I don't normally give content warnings unless I'm usually making a joke out of it. Even in the first Higanbana, or first couple of Higanbana videos, I sort of jokingly said at the beginning, hey, if you're sensitive and don't like dark stories or themes of abuse and things like that, kindly fuck off, please. But I gave an actual serious content warning here, because this depiction of suicide, I felt, was not trying to make it look like a bad thing. Not entirely. It did say it's useless, it's a pointless act for the rest of us. That it was the most important act in this person's life. It was pointless to the rest of us. She's just a fucking stain on the floor now. Blood's leaking out everywhere, it's horrible. But, I don't think it did enough to dissuade people. I think it could be taken as a romanticized view of suicide.
Oh.
Yeah, and I know from my own research that suicide has a very, very interesting quality in that it can be considered as a contagious thought. The suicide impulse can spread to people. And one of the ways it spreads to people is in depictions in the media where it's not shown as being gruesome or horrific, but instead can be romanticized in a way. That has actually been associated with an increase in suicides.
Jeez.
Yeah, it has been observed that if there's like a story of someone committing suicide in the news, sometimes there's an increase in people committing suicide there afterwards, so-called copycats. And the reason for that is because the original story didn't really make it out as a horrific act. So you do need to sort of dissuade people. In fact, I did speak with one person after this story went out, and they told me that they were feeling that this story was making it seem like an interesting thing to do, an actual making persuasive arguments for suicide, because after this first student, we then see the main character of the story, who looks like Rika. What's her name? I've forgotten it. Fucking hell. How could I have forgotten this one's? Yukari Sakaki. the bullied girl in school. Yeah. So, what we then see is a sort of battle of wits between Higanbana and Marie. Marie doesn't want students to kill themselves. Obviously, it's bad. But what's happening is Higanbana's hunt is to make students kill themselves. She likes doing that to make students kill themselves so that she can eat their souls afterwards, because she enjoys the taste of people who've got that regret. I don't know.
Marie being one of them.
She didn't eat Marie, thankfully, but yeah.
No.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so the latest prey is Yukari Sakaki. Higanbana wants to, or rather, Marie wants to stop her from killing herself before Higanbana's temptations get to her. Now, Yukari is picked on in class because, and this is quite bad as well, because when her mum died, her dad was looking after her, but he wasn't really able to do it properly, so her clothes weren't washed and she became smelly in school, and they started saying that she smells. That then escalated. But Yukari doesn't really try to fight back, but she also doesn't give the bullies anything to work with. She just ignores them, because when she asked her parents for help, her dad rather, he said, don't fight back, you'll just encourage them. Or don't do anything, you'll encourage them.
Which, yeah, I kind of get that. Like, the rise that they get out of you is kind of what a lot... I mean, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt that bullies do enjoy that, because it's about them thinking their power over you. So, like, if they see the effects that you're reacting to it, that's just, they feel they get something out of that. Whereas if you don't react, they get less of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say I've seen this sort of stuff happen as well in schools. So Yukari isn't really weak, though. And that's what Marie takes issue with, because Higanbana said she likes to pick on weaker people and make them kill themselves, whereas Marie sees Yukari as a strong person because she suffered a lot and hasn't actually killed herself. It's just that things are piling up on her.
Yeah.
So she wants to protect Yukari. One of the students is one of the bullies is a guy, Ozaki, and she decides let's dissuade him from going after Yukari. And this is like the first time we see Marie do an actual yokai type thing, which is to lure him into a toilet and then do the whole Marie Meso-Meso-san thing where she starts haunting him in the toilet by knocking on the door, and then, you know, he's scared and doesn't want to talk to her. And she's saying, you better not fucking hurt Yukari. Well, not in those words, but you know what I mean. And it scares the shit out of him. It's a pretty haunting moment. I liked it. And Higanbana liked it as well, because she's like, it's very interesting to see your hunt. A little boring, but interesting. But that doesn't do enough. The other boys are still fucking going after Yukari. And this is where Higanbana starts telling Marie about her own philosophy. There's always going to be bullying because it's based on hierarchies in school, in classrooms. You having a drink, mate?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so there's always a hierarchy in class. The bottom of the pile will be bullied. It's as simple as that, and that's what she says. But Marie is like, yeah, but this class is fucking weird. When Yukari's not there, they're not doing other stuff. They're just really, really angry that she's not there. Because they want to pick her on that much. So she just decides to investigate this because she heard that these students were all from the previous class 6. And that there was an incident in that class where one of the students had died. Some of the students believed that student had actually killed themselves, but it wasn't clear exactly if they had or not. So Marie decides she's going to investigate this. Now, another student moves in. This is where shit really hits the fan. This girl presents herself, Reiko Osumi. She presents herself as quite timid and frail. She's a blonde girl wearing a blue dress, and she's all kinds of nervous and timid. And she has a nervous laugh that she adds at the end of her sentences when she speaks. Generally, it seems like she's trying to dissuade the situation. Like, make things less stressful. She becomes friends with Yukari quickly. And they both talk to each other while going home from school about being bullied. What are you doing, mate?
Oh, can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Myself.
Yeah, it's very loud.
What the fuck?
Very loud.
I need to...
Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah. They're going home from school, and they both talk to each other about being bullied, and Reiko tells Yukari her philosophy. That the bullied kids provide nutrients to those who bully, and that those nutrients are necessary, and that is why they are bullied. As you said it, this was the first red flag.
It was a big red flag. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so one day at lunchtime, Reiko accidentally knocks over the curry that they're all going to eat for lunch. And gets it all over her clothes. And this is the part where all the guys start hating her because they didn't have lunch that day. And so they start picking on her, calling her curry fumes. And she is now the new bottom. This is where Higanbana starts to whisper, shall we say, to Yukari, saying, look, you see over there? That's how it was for you. You understand how bullying works now. There's always a bullied kid. Always. And things escalate. Like, really escalate. To the point where literally everyone in the class, apart from Yukari, is picking on Reiko, including the teacher.
Yeah, that was... This is where I was like, I can't watch this. This is fucking really, really grinding my gears.
I was getting pissed off, yeah, because they really, really dehumanized Reiko a lot. And they also physically abuse her. So, yeah. It just gets really unpleasant. And all the while, Higanbana is whispering to Yukari saying, look, you see how things are right now? Are you sure you want to help her? Because you could be in that position right now as well if you did that. And yeah, it's true, because Yukari is enjoying the fact that she's not being bullied anymore, but at the same time, she feels super bad because she wants to help Reiko. Obviously torn between what to do and how to do it. So... this is all about Higanbana's philosophy, the utopia, as the chapter is called, because this state of affairs creates what she calls a utopia, where everyone in class is actually really happy and enjoying themselves, apart from Reiko. But, ignore Reiko, fuck her, because she's the bottom of the class.
Someone has to take one for the team, as they say.
Yeah, and even Reiko's enjoying it. She's saying it might even be her fault that she gets this abuse because she encourages them to do it. By laughing it up, yeah.
See, this is the thing that made me hurt. Right, is when her reaction to nervousness and kind of or bad things happening is to laugh, to try and I think it's a nervous tick, but also a way to de-escalate the situation.
It is a genuine effort to de-escalate a situation, as you say.
And it just enrages everyone more or drives them more to bully her more, and it was horrible. At
first it pissed them off more because they were hungry. They didn't eat their food properly, right? Guys who are hungry will get really angry, especially if they're kids, right? And then later on they just take her nervous laughter as a sort of encouragement, like she's enjoying what they're doing. Meanwhile, Marie's been doing her investigations and comes to the conclusion that the previous student who was bullied by Class 6 had killed herself on purpose, and that the entire class was actually in on it, and that they were bullying her, much like this. One of the girls had said that the whole class used to corner that student and beat the crap out of her.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, yeah, Marie's doing her own investigations and finding out stuff. Things come to a head when Yukari decides to shout at the class and tell them to stop picking on Reiko. And they do. So, they sort of dejectedly stop in that instance. On the way home, Yukari and Reiko talk to each other. And, well, at first it seems like things are going to improve because Yukari's like, I'll look after you and you look after me and hopefully things will get better. We have to stand up to bullying. And this is where we're starting to see a message come through. Stand up to bullying. You have to. You can't just let it happen. And if you're one of the sort of bystanders, you're pretty much as bad as the rest of them. Which is what Higanbana was saying. Like, you're not acting, you're not helping the situation, so you're enjoying the benefits of it.
See, I disagree a little bit in that you're as bad as the bullies. It's bad to ignore it, and you're part by ignoring it. It's part of the problem, but I would not say someone that ignores it. I don't like the.
You don't like the connotation that you're compelled to intervene.
Yeah, but also that you're as bad as someone potentially physically abusing the other kid in the class because you're not doing anything. The reality is most people don't intervene because they then become the bullied person in class.
Yep, that's a valid point as well. You don't have to agree with Higanbana's perspective. I mean, for one, we've seen that her morality is suspect at best, and that, and that, you know, I reckon she's a spokesperson for the main author, Ryukishi. I feel these are his perspectives, and she is giving them in, you know, she's portraying these perspectives in the game and the story. So that is the same conclusion which Yukari comes to. They have to stand up to bullying. This is when the veil is removed and Reiko reveals herself to actually be Sumire of the Twilight, the 7th ranked, or 6th, I can't remember, 7th ranked of yokai of the mysteries, and essentially premier dickhead.
Oh, she was a 7th. So this again, I was like, I nodded off at some point and missed the reveal, but I just the reveal bit, so I didn't know she's like one of the ranking yokai.
She was one of the ranking yokai. One of the weaker ones, as she said it.
But yeah, no, I definitely saw the...
This is where I noticed a shift. This is where I noticed a shift, actually. I mean, I suppose the mysteries get to enjoy a degree of privilege over what they can and can't do. Because I remember Hamelin was very restricted in where his powers could manifest. He had to be in the music room at nighttime. Then he could do the castanets to turn people into rabbits.
Yep.
Those conditions had to be met. Sumire's story is explained to us. The story in the school, that is. So, you know, these yokai powers seem to be within the stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So her story is that you'll be playing in the schoolyard, and then you'll notice there's a kid amongst your group. Another girl. No one knows who she is, but she's just there, playing along with you like she's one of the group. And that's Sumire. And if you go home with her, you'll get spirited away and never seen again.
Right.
Definitely sounds like the kind of ghost story you'd hear in a school. Anyway, so I don't understand what that has to do with her, what she's been doing, which is to go and provoke the bullies into bullying her to the point they get addicted to bullying such that they're properly fucking addicted to it, even getting withdrawal symptoms if they don't bully, so that she can then spread them throughout the school to bully others and then reap the souls. Well, when we say souls, it's not the whole soul, but it's like bits and pieces of the soul as her harvest.
Yeah, and it was at this point that this became almost unbearable.
Yeah, so Sumire appears like one of the freaking witches from Umineko. She comes in a kimono. She's really fucking hamming it up. Marie appears and says, I realized you're actually Sumire, and you were also the girl who Class 6 picked on beforehand. And then committed suicide in a fake sort of show to get them hooked on the whole act of bullying. And yeah, it was a grand plan that she had been cultivating for a while now.
So she wasn't a real person from the beginning. She was just acting as a person who committed suicide.
Yeah.
She was being bullied.
Yes, she appears as a girl who gets bullied and then commits suicide. That's why she got them hooked on the act of bullying, which they then turned on Yukari in the next class. So she decides that... Marie decides she's going to protect Yukari from her, and Sumire then decides to fucking take out Yukari. Higanbana's there watching the whole while, and she's like, be careful, Sumire is dangerous. Sumire's like, no, I'm not dangerous. And then proceeds to fucking wipe the floor with Yukari by submerging her in a torment of reliving her being killed over and over again.
Jeez.
Yep, so that's not pleasant. And Yukari loses and fades out of existence, basically. But Sumire decides that what she was going to do, which was stay in the class and try to get Yukari to join in the bullying so that she could harvest her soul as well, she decides, no, it'll actually be better if we do what Marie wanted. Let Reiko Osumi disappear and let Yukari become the next bully again. Bullied student again. This time it'll be the whole class on her. And so that happens. Basically, Reiko disappears. The bullies have no one to turn to except Yukari. And it culminates in them ripping her clothes off in one incident. And she runs from them, trips down the staircase, and cracks her head on the floor. It was Higanbana who tripped her up. I should point out.
I didn't get why they were ripping her clothes off. Like, I get the bullying, but like the teacher, I know the teacher's in on this as well, but she was running around the school, I'm assuming in
her underwear. Yeah,
and nobody was like, what the fuck is going on?
That's what I was saying. I was like, why is no one questioning this? But it's the story. So she fell down the stairs, gets taken to the infirmary. This is where Higanbana tries one last attempt to get Yukari to kill herself. It doesn't work. Meanwhile, the students are all frustrated. They're like, fuck this, Yukari's off sick again.
Damn it, why is she off sick? Because she cracked her skull open from fucking falling down the stairs. That is literally what it is. It's like, how dare she take so much time off?
Yeah.
I wanted to fucking break my screen at that point, right? I wanted to literally, I have never wanted to inflict pain upon fictional characters so much in my life, right? With these people, that last bit, I was like, do you know what? I can't, I'm not watching anymore. Fuck this. These scum, if they get away with this, fuck this.
So the next part of the story, because Yukari was off sick for a bit after getting injured, the next part of the story features all the class on a school bus heading to what I think was the mountains for a school trip. And on the bus, they're all like, man, we're really gonna get Yukari when she comes back. And Sumire is enjoying the whole atmosphere as well. Even Ozaki, the student who was the bully who was coerced by Marie into not bullying Yukari anymore, said, yeah, I'll join in.
He's like, I'm going to start doing this again. Yeah!
Yeah, and, with renewed vigor, they're all really looking forward to the prospect of bullying Yukari again. And then Higanbana appears in front of the bus driver, so he swerves to avoid her and crashes the coach off a cliff, killing everyone except himself.
Which I was glad for. I was like, what the fuck? Bus driver didn't deserve this.
Sumire is like, what the fuck happened? And Higanbana appears and is like, hey, you know what? We have the freedom to interfere if we want. And I thought I would interfere and take all these souls for myself.
Translates to,
fuck you.
Do you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah, I love Higanbana. She's great, honestly.
I fell in love with Higanbana at that point. I went, yes, fuck yous, right? Fuck all of yous. Fucking, so good.
They fucking deserved it as well.
They did.
Well, actually, there is a point to argue that they didn't deserve it because they were getting hooked on it by Sumire, but I don't. I think that it was... I'm fairly certain it was stated that Sumire did not have the power to coerce them into doing it, like force them into doing it. But it was like a temptation, because Yukari has shown that she resisted the temptation from Sumire.
Yeah, like there has to be something there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like she's just giving you the opportunity.
Yeah.
And being like, look, you'd enjoy this.
So in that sense, the story can be taken as an allusion to addiction. Addiction to anything, but
I mean, yeah, and you can also take it more literally in the addiction of... Because there is something in that, that person that we make fun of, whether it's at work or at school or whatever. Yeah, they're so weird. They're so smelly. Why are they like anime? What a weeb. It's cool to make fun of a certain thing, depending on what groups you're in. And, like, you group up against them and you don't really think about it too much, but you just do it together and it can very easily go too far. And there is an enjoyment out of it because you're all doing it together against the weird person, the different person.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I mean, think about the groups that you hang in, and what they might talk about other people that you'd be like, yeah, man, and then you kind of get in on it. Like for different people, it's different things, but there is gonna be that thing where you go, yeah, man. In your groups, you kind of talk about that, and whether it's people or a subject. But like, think about that in school, where that is then a person or a group of people, and if you're like the popular kids or whatever, making fun of the geeks. I don't know what it is now because it's a different world now. Geeks are cool now or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
please.
Weebetries became fucking mainstream, man. I never talked to anyone in school.
I think you're
about
getting off
anime.
the point now. You're starting to delve
But
into your own personal
but-
fucking.
No, I'm just saying that like anyway, that's by the by. The point is that like there is that thing and that indulgence.
There is an indulgence in othering people, yes, and
Yes.
that is exactly what this story was about. They were getting so hooked on taking out whatever they wanted to on Yukari, on Reiko, on Misumi, the girl before. So yeah. Anyway, so the entire class is fucking wiped out, and Yukari has to move to another class. She reflects on her experiences so far and realizes she did fuck all the whole time. She was bullied, didn't do anything about it. She was then picked on by a yokai. She was saved by another yokai. But she didn't do anything. And then all these students died. So she makes a resolve that she will never allow bullying to stand again under her watch. And in a new class, she sees the kids getting bullied, so she decides to step up. And Marie, who was talking with Yukari in a new class, checking that she's alright, fades into the sunset because she's run out of yokai power and she needs to rest for a while.
Yeah, that was a good ending.
That was a good ending, and it felt like a proper ending as well.
It felt satisfying. Damn, I didn't think they could make me feel satisfied. I was so fucking frustrated.
So that's the brief plot synopsis. I do apologize if I've missed anything. I probably have. But yeah, I thought it was a very good collection of short stories. Now, one of the things that people said about Higanbana, which I heard before, that I wasn't, that didn't make me pick it up first, was that they said, hey, this is not as good as Higurashi or Umineko. Now, I have to question that, because those stories are very different in style. They're very long. We finished?
Damn, I keep, I was gonna... Yeah, sorry, I have.
They're very long, they're very in-depth, and, they go, like I said, they're very long and they're very in-depth. This is no less deep, if you ask me, but it is definitely short. And I consider that a strength now. We don't always have the time to pick up a 100-hour-long visual novel.
So, I don't know, I mean... This is, I would admit, this is different, right? It's a different thing. It's a different, I don't know. It feels different to Umineko and Higurashi. Well, at least Umineko, because I've read through that. And Umineko, so I've not played through the Higurashi visual novel. I've watched the anime, but not played through the whole visual novel. I think I've just went through part 1.
I went through the first 4 parts. I'd like to finish it at some point.
I need to one day get back to it. But having said that, with Umineko though, it felt in my head more fast paced and actiony. Like, I don't know, there's like a lot of things going on, whereas Higanbana is maybe a more well, I don't know, it's like crafted in that kind of like less actiony. It's like I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's not as wham bang in your face as Umineko. And so I can see why people would be like, oh, it's not as good. Which is not accurate. It is just very different. And it's a different setting with a different kind of focus. So, like, the school thing is not... I mean, it's a played out... settings in the schools not uncommon.
No, but I think the focus on bullying, the hyper focus on bullying that this visual novel goes into, very interesting to me, because normally if they talk about bullying in a story, it's usually quite generic. But these stories sort of delve into different aspects of bullying and how it affects people.
Yeah, like I agree. I think it is, especially talking to you about this now and kind of going over it in my head after having watched it. Like it is something special in that way, and it is really interesting. It's because with Ryukishi, that's the thing where it's like you're saying the characterization, the characters, and especially him potentially drawing from his personal experience. It feels real in a way, even though it is over the top in a lot of points, and you're having yokai. But like it, the bullying and the things that happen, it makes me feel uncomfortable because it reminds me of stuff. It feels real. They're very like there's
You could
relatable things
see them
happening
happening in real life.
just like obviously without the lovely veneer of the supernatural and yokai. And I think that's a really good thing. I like but feeling uncomfortable. I think you should be in a sense, because that's what it's talking about, and it is really horrible things, and delving in deep into them and the what can potentially like push people to do these things and motivations and stuff like that. It makes me think about my time at school and maybe at points where I didn't help when there was bullying, and you know that kind of not doing anything, turning the other eye. Like I feel bad. Like high school is a fucking terrible place, an absolutely terrible place in some ways for when growing up, especially if you're not seen as normal for whatever reason. And it's yeah, so it is like it's special in a different way. So I agree with you in that. Like it's I have thoroughly enjoyed this, but it's more hyper focused on that bullying aspect, I think, whereas Umineko and Higurashi were a bit.
Well, the thing about Umineko and Higurashi, they have their own themes. Like Higurashi is a story about friendship and relying on your friends and making sure that you can trust your friends is what I would say Higurashi is about, because obviously there's the elements of paranoia that prop up. Umineko is a story about love. It's familial love, it's romantic love, all platonic love, all those sorts of things. And it delves into all of these aspects in different ways. Even physical love, not physical love, so each one of these stories does have their focus, and I think the focus of Higanbana is bullying. It's quite funny because Kikonia, the one which is unfinished as of this moment, is I think the focus of that one is politics more than anything, geopolitics.
Ugh.
Yeah. But that's unfinished. Can't really talk about that much.
It's only got part 1 is out as well. I'm assuming there's going to be like 8 or something.
I believe we've been told that there should be 4 parts for it.
Alright, okay. Man, it'd be fucking decades before they all come out.
I mean, from what we've been told, he's trying to cut the waffle. And that would be pleasant. I would enjoy it if he cut the waffle, because if there's any criticism I have of Rikishi and his works, there's definitely a lot of waffle in them. They can extend for longer than they need to.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I also want to point out that I think on a technical level, while it's working on the same engine, the N-Scripter language, N-Scripter visual novel engine, I think that Higanbana is actually quite a step above both Higurashi and Umineko in their original presentation. The graphics, that is to say the sprite work, looks better than Higurashi and Umineko. The background artwork, you also said as well, it has a very eerie feel to it. Everything looks dark, dingy, dim. It really suits this setting in the school at nighttime. The characters have got dark shadows painted all over their bodies, so it always looks like they're in the dead of night, even though it may be daytime. But yeah, it's a stylistic choice, and I like it. And it gives the best way to see the improvement is actually if you take the character of Sakuno Shin, compare him to Sakutaro from Umineko, who looks exactly the same, and you will see the difference in art quality between them. The music is by Luck Ganriki, who also did the music for Umineko, and it shows. Quite a few of the tracks just seem to be straight up remixes.
I didn't notice that. Like, I wasn't really hyper focusing on the music that much, besides just appreciating it. Like, for being good music.
It is good. It feels like an equal product to me. I'm very much looking forward to getting into the second Higanbana visual novel. The Second Night is what it's called. I'll be picking that up maybe in April or so. There's not too long a wait.
So it's split into two main parts, just like I feel like Umineko and Higurashi are the same, aren't they?
I suppose you could put it that way, because but while Higurashi and Umineko are split into question and answer arcs, I don't think this is necessarily split along those lines. It's just more stories, I think.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes.
It will be interesting to see where it goes, and I'm very much interested in what the ultimate conclusion will be.
Yeah, where do they go with it? Will they tie it in more with the other ones?
This is one of those settings where I could see them making stories for a long time if they felt like it. Like, they could just make more and more ghost stories.
True.
They've got the setting for it. The school is huge. The reason for that is that it justifies them pulling out new students out their arse.
True.
Transfer students have been said to transfer in frequently as well. So again, reasons to get more students out their arse. They can spread the story as large as they want.
They have limited themselves in terms of the main yokai, though, to like
7 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with the story of Hamelin, we got the idea that other yokai can just sort of waltz right in.
They can, but at their
own risk.
Their own risk.
Yeah. But you can also add yokais like Marie. She's the 8th rank, even though there were 7.
I mean, yes. But what was it that made you start reading Higanbana? What got you on it in the first place?
I was curious. I had just about finished Koikari, and I wanted another visual novel. And I really, really like Umineko, just like you do.
Yes.
And I think this was right after we heard that Ryukishi will be doing Silent Hill F. And I thought, I'm going to check out more Ryukishi stuff. And this was the next story that came to my attention. I hadn't heard of Rosegun's Days until you played it. I haven't heard of Iwaihime until Crack Dealer brought it up. And you started it. I have heard of his other work, Trianthology, but there's no English translation for that one.
Ugh.
And that's all the ones I know from 7th expansion. I have played Kikonia, the first one, and for that reason I can't really do that one again. Also, it's got a restriction that you can't stream it.
Oh.
Or rather, in the game itself, it asks you politely, please do not go past chapter 7 if you do wish to upload this. And so I'll respect that wish because I respect the author.
Where's chapter? Oh, is that in the first game?
In the same game, yeah. It's got something like 14 chapters or 15 chapters.
Interesting.
Yeah. And chapter 7 is when shit hits the fan. So yeah.
Fair enough. I need to play that. But
it's good. I'm just hoping he finishes it. I hope it's not dropped.
Has he dropped other stuff though?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I feel like when he starts something, he does his best to finish it.
So, I mean, the reason why, and we're now getting off topic of Higanbana, but let's just talk for a bit longer. The main reason why I've heard that he's slow to get to Kikonia episode 2 is because it was delving into a storyline with politics that reflected the world situation right now in a way which would have been a little bit more than uncomfortable.
And it was unintentional. He wasn't planning to do that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It just so
And
happened the world changed in a way that was being reflected in a sense in his story.
So to just go over it, it was, just to go briefly into it, from what I played of episode 1, there were themes of some kind of upcoming biohazard. As in a man-made natural disaster.
Oh.
So, yeah. But then again, there's themes of that in Higurashi, just not on a global scale.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
Conspiracies and cover-ups are no stranger to the When They Cry series.
No. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but understandable.
I liked Kikonia episode 1. I would really be happy to see it follow up very soon. But I know it's not going to happen for a while. They're enjoying the success of the Higurashi remake / sequel / anime. And they're sort of reveling in that with promotional materials and such for Higurashi. Imaneko got a re-release as well on the Switch.
Did it? Nice. Is there not like an extra part or episode or something in that?
Episode 9.
God, I fucking hate that they've done that.
I've got it.
I
have the Switch version downloaded and I have it installed with an English patch.
Yes, I want to see this.
One day.
But yeah, no, this has been... It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Watching through this game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Higanbana, and ultimately that is my conclusion. Why did I like it? Because I think it actually more than met the quality that I expected. It was certainly downplayed by some people. I don't know who they were, because I can't find those comments. But... But yeah, I feel that Higanbana matches the quality I expected from a Rikishi work. A bunch of short stories, which not all of them are like a 10 out of 10, but they're all good on some levels.
I think that's...
Yeah.
That, on the surface, you want to like, a bunch of short stories. That's what I think. If I heard that, having not seen it, it would have put me off a little. I don't know why. I prefer that kind of like one main story, like Higurashi and Umaneko. But having watched through Higanbana, it's really good. Like, I don't think that does anything. It doesn't take anything away from it.
Exactly.
It adds to it, really.
Exactly, yeah. But it does leave me wanting more. I really like Higanbana as a character and Marie as a character, and would enjoy seeing them haunt the school more.
Yeah, and seeing them interact more with the other yokai, like further in the next in Night 2, and seeing how that plays out, because they're all the 8 main yokai. They're all interesting characters.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention in my summary, but the Black Tea Gentleman was revealed to not be from the 7 ranked, the 7 mysteries, but he worked under the headmaster anyway. It was his number 2.
Ah, okay. I'm looking forward to that part 2.
Yeah. So, all of you who've been watching this Spoilercast, thank you for joining. It was just us rambling, but that's generally how we do things.
That's how I live my life.
I was thinking of doing a more structured approach earlier, but then I ran out of time, basically, and I thought yeah. Well, we'll get to Higanbana the second night soon enough, I hope. Yeah. On that point, I hope all of you have a very nice evening. Sleep well, have sweet dreams, and don't get haunted. Just don't, because it'll ruin your evening.
Unless it's Higanbana, then it's okay.
Nah, she'll fucking screw you over.
Some people would pay for that.
Some people do pay for that. And on that point, I think we'll call it over there. Good night, everyone. See you later.
See ya.